And lo, I saw a rider on a pale horse, and the rider was Death.
Oh, we started?
Yes.
I will rejoice, everyone. We're back. Bit of a weird setup here.
Not really. We're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
This one is a tad short, and that's because this is kind of a test.
I don't know. I fully expect to explain schistosomiasis in incredible detail for our viewers.
Go off, but yeah, no, this is eventually may or may not be the format we go with for a long while.
You never know. Anyways, I thought I'd share with you all my favorite image of Death on a pale horse. Since we're doing Pale Rider, obviously. This is what I see when I think of the Pale Rider.
That rider is not pale. That rider is black.
But the horse is pale, not the rider. See, that's the way it works, right? Because Pale Rider is a reference to, and yes, I did pull up the Clint Eastwood because I thought it was funny. This is the first thing that shows up if you Google Pale Rider.
Yeah, no.
And I need you.
I realize that it's a little bit off-putting.
I need you to be entirely. I need to be entirely honest with you. I would watch this, because you know what the best part is. Anyways, I have not watched Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, but what I really meant to say is that this is where the reference to Pale Rider comes from. It comes from the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are characters featured in John of Patmos's Book of Revelations, which is apocalyptic biblical literature. I struggle to call the Bible anything other than literature. I'm going to be honest, so we're going to go with that. It is a book. It is, at least for me. But the four riders are death, famine, war, and conquest, typically. And you get, I think there's a little bit of like fucky-wucky going on with this servant in particular, because the one on the pale horse is death. But you also had me looking up plagues, and the rider with the plagues is a white horse. So pale, white, similar, but not exactly the same. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's okay. Speaking of, this is a really famous piece of art of them. Yeah, so like the different riders and stuff.
Third to last one there looks kind of like Herc.
This one?
Yeah.
It is war.
Dad bought Herc.
It is war. And if you notice, these are some Roman armor and kind of Greek-inspired helmets down here, so. But that's the painting by Victor Vasnetsov from 1887. But it is a very famous image of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. I really need to fucking sneeze. And it's not happening. So I'm gonna head down to the pale one and then back up to the white one, since I'm going with pale first. So this is the pale horse, right? And this is death. In this version, it's Thanatos, because Thanatos is the god of death. Hades is not, even though Hades is associated with death. Hades is the god of the underworld, not the god of death. It's a different thing. Place versus concept. So typically this is Thanatos, right? And he rides the pale horse. And he is death. Typically he is followed by Hades, which is the resting place of the dead in, like, when described in Christian works. It's also compared with Sheol, which is the word used in Jewish scripture, I believe, that means something similar, like the place of death, the place where the dead kind of exist. And this horse is, and by pale they mean, this could either mean like a pale colored horse, or a horse that kind of has like a greenish yellow, like pallid color. It's kind of what you imagine when you think of like zombies coming back to life, that kind of grayish white, maybe some like greenish yellow in there, but like really pale. This is what I think of when I hear pale rider. You know what I mean? But that's just because pale horse, pale rider. But what I think they've done is I think they've taken pale for the horse, the white horse, because the white horse is the plagues. He brings the plagues, and is also kind of the Antichrist. I really have
Pleasant
to sneeze.
things.
Oh fuck! I really have to sneeze.
Then do it.
Also, did you?
Do it.
I can't. Not now that you've told me. That's so mean.
Did I what?
That's so mean. I assume we don't need to talk too much about the Red Rider or the Black Rider.
Not really, no. You will. They'll come up.
Red is war, black is famine, essentially. Typically. I mean, there is some debate. That's why conquest is sometimes included, and sometimes you'll see different words for the different horsemen. But in general, plague, famine, war, and death. And they arrive kind of during the apocalypse. Each given authority over a quarter of Earth, and they are part of the Last Judgment and the end times. And we see them in Supernatural, which is super fun because I love Death in Supernatural. He is the coolest character, and he has the most amazing theme song. I think you've heard. I played it in my car a few times, but it's super fucking good. It's that one that just starts "Oh Death." Yeah, and he arrives in like a white, like, vintage Cadillac, you know, or something. Oh, stunning. But moving on from the basic thing. So the second thing you gave me to look up was plagues, right? And so I think the most important thing to know about plagues is the fact that it is a disease that can affect humans and other mammals. Typically, it can be transmitted in several different ways, and it is typically highly contagious in one way or another, whether it be by it's blood, bodily fluid, or dispersion of germs, right? So you have examples like cholera, like the Black Plague, the famous one, the plagues of Egypt, COVID-19, the Spanish influenza. Plague doesn't necessarily denote a specific type of disease, more the fact that it becomes pandemic, typically. Excuse you. Oh, shit. Did I do that? Okay. We might have something fun happen in a couple minutes. I might have to end the meeting and restart. I forgot I'm not paying for it anymore. They raised the prices.
Oh.
Yeah, they raised the prices, and you're only allowed like a certain amount of time per meeting. With the free version, but I was not paying like $18 a month for something I wasn't using.
So how much time we got?
9 minutes.
Let's finish your section, then we'll do my plan unintentionally. We'll just check how it came out.
Yeah. So, oh god, it popped up like in the middle of when I was talking. Fuck. What was I saying?
Plagues.
Yeah, well, plagues are basically a genre of disease. It's anything that becomes epidemic, but typically pandemic. And the difference between epidemic and pandemic is in its reach and existence in different regions of the world. Obviously, pan means all over. So if it is a pandemic, it is all over the world. And if it is epidemic, that means that it has, I believe that means that it has become naturalized in all the countries that it's in, right? Because there are some diseases that aren't typically carried in more than one region of the world. Like, for example, Ebola is traditionally found in Africa, and a lot of the spread has been stopped. And there are cases sometimes in other countries, but not very often, so it's not an epidemic. But COVID became an epidemic because it basically became a naturalized disease in every region that it infested by sheer amount of cases and transmission. So you can go from epidemic to pandemic and pandemic to epidemic, but they are technically two different definitions. Although they are relatively widespread. Some of the famous ones in history are the Black Death, right? And that was in the 1300s, the 1340s, and that was bubonic plague. The Spanish flu during and into right after World War I, 1918 to 1920, and that was in influenza. The plague of Justinian was also bubonic. Technically, two present epidemics and pandemics are the HIV, AIDS, and COVID-19. Those are ongoing. And then there's a few other major ones kind of from around the world. The Antonine Plague, the Kokozlistli epidemic in the 1500s. There was a typhus epidemic in Russia in the early 1900s. Basically at the same time that Spanish influenza was going through the rest of the world, Russia had typhus. Not Spanish influenza, which is fucking hilarious. A really famous one in American history, like somebody to do with plagues and epidemics, is Typhoid Mary. So Typhoid Mary is really famous for being involved with that. There's a couple other really major ones. There was a Japanese smallpox epidemic in the 700s, and the cholera one in 1846 that led to the first mapping and discovery of like germs based on well sites by John Snow, who was like, let me plot all the cases of people who got sick, and then what are the common like matrices of where they're interacting, and it was wells, and people were touching and drinking from the same well that had cholera in it. So, ooh, look, germs. It's no longer miasma theory. Or the fucking four humors, God. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Plagues are also cited as a pretty major reason for the depopulation of the Americas once Europeans arrived. And there are some really, really high estimates out there for how many native peoples died, although they are generally not at the moment backed up by physical proof. Most of it's based on population estimates and records. But they were massive ones all over the Americas. Like, there were a lot of epidemics that wiped out a lot of people, especially things like smallpox and that sort of thing. So that's some basic kind of background on famous plagues and epidemics. One of the most well-known ones, going by Bible references, are the plagues of Egypt, subject to a very, very amazing song in the Prince of Egypt movie. I send the pestilence and plague into your house, into your bed. And so those ones are really popular in the Bible. And they are 10 disasters that were sent on to Egypt by the God of Israel to convince the Pharaoh to let go of the enslaved Israelites. Although technically not all of them would necessarily have been considered like plagues or epidemics by modern standards. Like turning water to blood would not be. That's more of environmental pollution. Same thing with the frogs or the lice or the gnats or the wild animals. Now the pestilence of livestock, that would be. The boils, that could be. Not the locusts, not the firestorms. The darkness, no. The death of the firstborn son, I don't know, depending on what it's attributed to. If they all die of like influenza and no one knew it, then yeah, maybe
I don't know how much the biblical plagues are plagues as much as they are war crimes.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there was the boils and the pestilence of animals. Now, the death of all your firstborns, unless they're all dying from, like, Spanish influenza, maybe that's not a plague. Maybe that's just against the Geneva Convention. You know, but you do you, boo. You know, whatever frees your people. Interestingly
But he was going
enough,
after your boy Ozzy.
yeah, I was just gonna say, traditionally the pharaoh that's agreed was the subject of these, according to the Bible, is Ramses the Great, Ozymandias, which is really interesting because there's not a whole lot of historical evidence for that. Like, in our records of the reign of Ozymandias, although his firstborn did die. Technically, his first 12 born died before he did. Which is why Merenptah,
that's a war crime.
His 13th son, Merenptah, was the one who inherited from him. I really think that's all I can squeeze out of this with what you've given me. You've given me plagues and the Pale Rider, and I don't do Bible studies. So I really have no recourse other than to just kind of search for Bible passages and then look up plagues. I did make a little joke about exposing y'all to schistosomiasis because I once had to do a project on schistosomiasis, but honestly, that grossed me out, and I don't feel the need to gross you all out by making you learn about schistosomiasis, even though it is one of the oldest parasites that inhabits humans, and evidence of it has been found inside of ancient Egyptian mummies. Yeah, and it still affects us today. Which is pretty fucking cool. And gross.
We'll go with that. First, I have something that was not around when I did the notes for this, but it is a brief thing that Sekhie has kind of already seen and might have even caught on to. Sekhie, if you could open up that little Twitter tab there. So this is a brief snippet of the Memorial movie. Specifically, you can see them pretty clearly there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there they be.
So these are not supposed to be literal interpretations of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But they're metaphorically there to show humanity killing itself over time.
I mean, Four Horsemen riding's pretty...
Yeah, it's just a cool little image that they put in for the movie.
Yeah. I'm not sure I caught this frame in particular. I think I was too busy staring at the other characters. I was trying to enjoy every second of them. Yes. I am a simple woman with simple tastes.
But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for designs, it's a pretty cool image.
It really is. Like, damn. Very nice. Alright, what's up next?
So, next, we're going to be talking about Pale Rider from Fate's Strange Fake, which is a little bit different. To understand Pale Rider, we kind of need to understand Pale Rider's master. You read the first volume of Strange Fake, so you know a little bit about this, but I can go over it in little detail in case you're blurry on things, or because the audience haven't all necessarily read Strange Fake here.
Yeah, and is that this Tsubaki Kuruoka?
Kuruoka? Yes.
Okay.
So, Tsubaki here is part of a mage family, which that's generally speaking just never a good start for a little girl in Fate. Her parents take interest in the Holy Grail and assist in its creation in Snowfield, America, which is apparently close to Las Vegas.
Love that.
They would attempt to make Tsubaki a powerful mage using familiar means to Fate fans, specifically similar means to Zoken, Mato, and Fuyuki through his use of familiars called crestworms. Those tear apart bodies of the heirs of a mage family in order to plant them with a magic crest, which will increase their ability as mages, but cause them no end to suffering, often killing or driving their hosts mad.
Interesting.
So Tsubaki's parents would try something similar, using bacteria instead, in hopes that would better her ability as a mage. This would ultimately be a problem, as they would lose control of the bacteria, and it would cause her to fall into a coma. Her parents would think
bacteria.
Yeah. Her parents would not think very much of this, and because her body is still alive, even if she's kind of gone brain dead. So long as they can keep her on life support and use her reproductive system when she got older to produce another heir, what's the problem with a little bit of bacteria?
Oh God, that has become a debate in modern medicine, like in the modern medical field, and that is just something that like physically makes me unwell. Like
it's gross.
The concept that, you know, any doctor would go to a parent after their child has suffered some sort of accident that left them brain dead and say, hey, do you want us to, like, have your daughter carry a baby while she's brain dead so you can still have a piece of her? Like, that's horrifying. That's such a violation of every form of bodily autonomy. And apparently some people have brought up the fact that it's basically the same as organ donation. And in my opinion, it's very much not. Because you are dead. Like, if you are donating your organs, you are deceased, right? Like, you are going to die, or you have died. You are not being spoon-fed and, like, kept alive on life support as a vegetable just to incubate a child that is a part of you that you will never know. And who will never know you. Not really.
It's gross
horrifying.
On an autonomy level for parents to make the choice for their child.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, husband make the choice for their wife.
Oh, God, no. I would haunt someone so hard in the afterlife.
Well, I don't know if I was a woman. I don't know if I would take that option. I could see maybe an argument of if you could consent to it prior to death, similar to organ donation. Like, well, I don't think I would do it if I had that option, but
yeah,
maybe
some people have proposed it as it should be part of being an organ donor if you're a woman.
Yeah, no, it's very different.
Yeah,
it should be a completely separate, completely separate optional defiling of your body.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on from that horrifying topic of modern medicine.
Yeah, so back to fate. Mages are fucked up.
Fate really be predicting shit.
Yeah. So the parents, the horrible human beings that they are, don't think much of this and plan to just move on with the Grail War. But because Tsubaki is actually really powerful as a mage, even if she's kind of in a coma, they accidentally cause her to summon a servant. In particular, she summons what ends up being called the Pale Rider. And you can go ahead and move us into the Pale Rider if you want.
Oh, how delightfully designed.
We have a little bit more images of that as we go on here. So as we move on, we can go ahead and scroll down if you'd like. They should have some more up from the anime release.
Yeah.
Initially, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the names here, and it's a little bit contradictory that listed here is both pestilence and death and the Grim Reaper, because, you know, like canonically those would be different characters. They're not the same person.
I will get to that in a second. There's a reason why it's so like one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So initially the parents intended to summon Qin Shi Huang, but instead they got sort of a conception of death itself. This isn't literally the Pale Rider of Death from the Bible. Mm-hmm. It's more like the name is more metaphorical than anything. It's not a heroic figure in myth, and it's instead a concept made into a servant. Mm-hmm. So it's not the Pale Rider, but it is sort of the general human feeling of death, which ends up being similar but not the same.
There is a school of thought when looking at like kind of biblical stories and tales and that sort of thing that would have you take it as an allegory and not as like an actual rider. It's not actually death on a pale horse or pestilence on a white horse. There is a school of thought that would have you look at that and say the reason why they're called the Harbingers is because the world will be visited by so much war, disease, and famine and death that we will know it's the end times. Not that it's not a personification, it's just the presence of so much of them. You know? Mm-hmm.
And I mean that makes sense. Like I have a feeling that's like are you taking the Bible literally? Are you taking it very metaphorically? And certain parts, especially the parts that are like, this is the future, that could be considered very different.
Exactly.
There's another image of a more literal interpretation of one of the writers.
Oh. Interesting.
Actually, it looks like there's another image there.
Oh yeah, there is. Hold on. Oh,
there. That's the one we looked at before. So yeah, those are more literal interpretations of the writers of the apocalypse.
Oh, look at the little skelly horse.
So as we scroll down here, I believe we should get a few more clear images of the actual character. Like, there's one from one of the...
You know what it kind of reminds me of? Truth from Fullmetal Alchemist.
I don't think I know that character. Is it from the... It wasn't in the original. It's the only one I've seen so far.
There's two characters. So the first is... Truth.
Oh, yeah, that's almost end of Fullmetal Alchemist, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm only showing you the character design.
Yeah.
Because you meet him very early in the series. You just don't, like, see him.
Yeah, I've never seen him before, but I've seen you talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, there's a piece of art of him in my room somewhere that I've had up a few times. So, I mean, he's been up on my walls when you've been over. You just probably didn't notice compared to all the other stuff.
I think I did, because we've talked about him before, like, pre-Anime Club altogether.
Yeah.
Pre-channels even creation.
Yeah. But yeah, it reminds me a little bit of that.
Just an amorphous thing.
Yeah. Oh.
So a lot of these interpretations just end up being very metaphorical, like,
yeah,
they might be something someone sees, but it's like more like you're seeing things flash before your eyes kind of thing.
I don't know, man. If I manifest the fucking rider of pestilence, I want it to be a plague doctor. I want a plague doctor ass looking fucker to come. Oh, finally. I needed that.
So
interesting. I am swords, I am beasts, I am thirst, I am hunger, I am the bearer of death, I am the player of death, I am death, I am death, death.
In some ways, he's kind of all of the horsemen of the apocalypse, because all of them kind of bring with them some form of death. Ooh, bless you. Because he's not just pestilence, he's not just accidental death. He is like anything you would fear as death, or anything you would see as death. He's basically a living curse. And the way he fights here is he takes advantage of that little pestilence side. He fights by spreading disease. Primarily what he ends up doing, because a lot of people's association with the disease is the Black Death, a lot of what the symptoms of that tend to resemble
the
are
bubonic
the
plague.
Death.
Yeah.
His presence alone...
You could be so much more creative.
Well, it also mentions that some people will see him as the Spanish flu.
That's true. Fun fact. Do you know the reason why it's called the Spanish flu?
Why?
So, the Spanish flu is called the Spanish flu because at the time when it became public knowledge, World War II was going on, and the nations that were fighting World War II in both America and in Europe didn't want to announce that there was an epidemic among the soldiers because they didn't want that going off in the newspapers. And so Spain, which was neutral during this war, they announced it in their newspapers, and so everyone started assuming that it first came from Spain, right? Even though in reality it had originated in the United States at least a year prior and was brought over by soldiers and transmitted through the trenches. But because of that, we call it the Spanish flu because the Spanish were the first to publish about it in newspapers. And so it was the first time the world really heard about it.
Fuck the Spain. Remember the Maine. other than that, let's see. So his presence alone will kill people around him. He can conceal himself and spread himself out to entrap people within a contained, bounded field. He's also capable of dragging people into his master's dream world by infecting them. Because his master is still alive, but in basically an everlasting dream.
Yeah. Horrifying.
This place is kind of treated as a conceptual underworld, too.
Okay. A little bit like Hades that follows the riders, the kind of personification of the underworld.
Yeah. It's his own personal land of the dead. And the more people he kills, the stronger that his combat ability becomes, because more people are in it. Mm-hmm. I believe, I could be wrong here, but I think I remember seeing somewhere that like how you perceive that world can change between different people. Sort of a Percy Jackson type thing. I could be wrong on that one, though. I think I remember seeing that.
Interesting.
So, if you look down here, we have his two noble phantasms, Doomsday Come and Kagome Kagome.
Well, I can tell you Doomsday Come is a reference to the Harbingers of the Apocalypse.
Yes. A lot of what his naming convention is going to be that Harbingers of the Apocalypse, because that's just how the best way they could identify him.
I mean, hey, this means we have two Book of Revelations characters.
Yeah, kinda, except they're Book of Revelations characters, but also not really.
Yeah, because Draco
is a little weird too.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, dealing with Christian religious texts can be a struggle all on its own. I had a whole conversation about the Book of Kells earlier today on campus, and I hate the Book of Kells with like a burning passion. It is a beautiful book. It's super famous because it's like a beautifully illustrated manuscript, but it's kind of like somebody gave a monk a copy of the Latin Bible and a copy of a book on Celtic mythology and a copy of the Vulgate cycle, let him read them once, and then took them all away and said, rewrite them as one story. And you don't get to look at them again. And any time you have like an extra page, we'll just have you copy random lists of names with no context. But you'll make them look pretty. And so, almost as bad as the Lindisfarne manuscript.
So, Doomsday Come is the dream world, the land of the dead that Pale Rider can drag people into. Within there, though, him and his allies end up stronger. And yes, I was correct. If we were to click into there, that's where we would see that its appearance will be based off. It's not based off the person in there's the victims. I made that mistake. It's based off of his master's perception of death. Okay. So, I don't remember what Tsubaki's was, but say you're a soldier traumatized by the trenches of World War I. You go into that
of World War I.
Yeah, your perception of death is going to be the trenches of World War I.
Mm-hmm. That's entirely possible. Pretty cool, though.
Yeah, and then his second noble phantasm is Kagome Kagome. This one allows Rider to create perfect circumstances for death within that bounded field. So, this is the one that... This one becomes more deadly because it has to be a circumstance that his master can understand, but it's going to be the perfect way of killing the victim. Mm-hmm. So, say you're allergic to bees, like very allergic to bees, and you get stung, you're dead.
Yeah.
If his master can understand the concept of bees stinging and allergic reactions, your death is probably going to be by bees.
Anaphylaxis. Lovely.
Yeah, but this could also extend to more general apocalypses here, like they cite Ragnarok. That said, because Tsubaki is so young and was comatose at an early age, that she doesn't have the most creative means of thinking about it.
Oh, that's disappointing. I'd love to see Ragnarok brought on by the fucking master of Pale Rider. So you
And
don't
yet-
have a... You don't have a...
Nope. The servant is not an FGO yet.
Oh, okay. So, in that case... Oh, I thought there
Yeah.
was going to be like a receptacle of art. There is not.
No, this is
No, this
not a
is it.
servant with a lot to them. Like I said, this is short on my end. In fact, I don't really know how we end it at this point.
Well, I would say that the optimal ending would be with a hint for the next servant.
Hint, hint, hint. Who's next? Oh, I know
Is
who's
it-
next.
Okay.
Okay. So, Sekhie, what do you have an irrational fear of?
You wouldn't.
Say it. Go ahead and say it.
2 things.
It's not the undead.
Okay. Then spiders. I am an arachnophobe.
Well, your guys' next hint is spider. Very big spider.
Oh shit. Now I'm second guessing who the next servant
You know
is.
who it is, but I'm going for... This is
Okay.
This is like a sideways tangent to the next servant. If I said it, they would know. Like there are other hints I can give more to the to the person
Okay.
you're thinking of, but this is
Okay.
for the fans.
Alright. So we'll be back with a spider-themed servant next time, I guess. Also, it's officially the beginning of Halloween month. So enjoy the spooky season on the channel. At least in the Reacts to Fate videos. We're not really theming our off the shelves or anything, but we're certainly theming the Reacts. It's spooky season.
Monsters, killers, ghosts,
Spooky, scary
roasts.
skeletons and shivers down your spine. Alright. Try harder, everyone.